Okay. Okay, so the agenda for today is to go over the assignment and a review of the topics that, just an exam review and any other questions you might have. So, right. So my solution was I had a result which was going to be returned as to whether it was a player win or a computer win or a draw. And I gave you this code, right? This is the code I gave you, right? You just had to write game result. Okay, so makes it simple. Let's just go to right. So here's my game result. So I had given these functions to calculate the row total, the column total, the left to right diagonal total, and the right to left diagonal total. And so all I'm doing here is I'm going through for 3 times, because there are 3 rows and 3 columns. So here, when I is 0, I'm going through for the first row, and I'm calling the function row total, passing it a 0, which means I'm looking for the total for the first row, and I'm testing to see if it's 3, indicating that the player won. That would, because you were putting a 1 in if the player moved in a square, or I'm putting a -1 if the computer moved in a square. So if it's equal to 3, it meant the person won on the ith row. Or if again, here I'm looking for both column totals and row totals, so I'm calling column total, which is going to calculate what the total is in the column to see if that's equal to 3. Or I'm calling the diagonal total, and because there's only one to left to right diagonal, I'm not passing it a parameter. It's sort of dopey. I'm calling this too many times the diagonal total, but it doesn't hurt because that doesn't change. I'm not passing any value. It's always going to return the same result, whether I is 0, 1, or 2. I'm testing to see if that's 3, or I'm testing to see if the other diagonal is 3. So if any of these things are true, then the player has won. And so I set result equal to P, and sort of in a similar fashion, I've done the exact same thing for the row total, for testing to see if it's equal to -3, so I'm doing the exact same tests, and I'm testing to see if those things, any of those things are equal to -3, in which case I'm going to set the result equal to C. And if that's not true, then I'm calling the function spaces left to see if there are any spaces left. Spaces left returns a 0. If there are no spaces left, it returns a positive number if there are spaces left. So if this is equal to 0, it indicates that it's a draw. So I'm doing this 3 times. I didn't need to do this 3 times. I could have taken that out of the loop, actually. And then I simply return result. I guess a better way does anybody have any question with this? I guess a clearer way to do it is perhaps I should have done the following. See if you think this is better. Instead of having this here, perhaps I should have said if result equal to nothing, indicating that we haven't found that either the computer won or the player won, and if space is left is equal to 0, then the result, that's probably clearer. So if I come out of here and I haven't found that the computer won or the player won, regardless, I'm going to fall out of here, results could have some value. It's either going to be blank, P, or C. If it's blank, it could mean that it's a draw, or it could mean that there's still spaces to move to. So if it's blank, I want to check to see if there are any spaces left. There are any spaces left, then I know it's a draw. And I'll return that. I think that's probably better. I like that better. Any questions on this? You guys just too numb after all the work you've been doing over this weekend studying for exams? Finally, I've said something truthful in this class. After 14 weeks, I've actually stumbled upon the truth. Okay, I won't take it personally. It's too bad. It's too bad I had to leave it to the end of the semester to do this. This is sort of a fun problem to do. No accounting for taste. And it probably would have been more fun if you could figure out how to have the computer play intelligently instead of making random moves play, so that it always either draws or wins. But in any case, I wanted to give you guys more experience using two-dimensional lists or arrays, and so this was a good example of it. And I guess this part of it actually, since I provided you with the functions to do all the calculations for the totals, didn't actually even need to use arrays here, because all you're doing was calling the functions. Okay. Just turn myself. So I've posted this to Blackboard also, but I printed out topics for so Okay, so, again, same exam rules as before, open book, open notes, open anything but another person, and you can only use functions that were taught in class or in the handout of functions, which is pretty much the list that I handed out, so you can't go out to the internet and find some weird function that does stuff. That's not okay. And I will be here okay. I'm willing to be here at 8:30 on Tuesday morning if anybody wants to start early. Does anybody want to start early? Okay, so I'll be here at 8:30. I am not intending, as I said before, I am not intending the exam to be so complicated such that it would take, 3 hours and 40 minutes. So as well as I can, I will engage, I will try to make the questions, the difficulty of the questions such that a student who's done well in this class would be able to complete this in the 2 hours that are normally allocated towards it. Yes?
Should we expect multiple questions or one running question?
Multiple. I think at least two, more likely two, possibly three. I haven't made up the exam yet, but that would be my intention. So it would be unfair for me to give you a problem, say, to do. I wouldn't give you a problem to do the whole tic-tac-toe problem. Giving you just doing the game result would be fair game. You should be able to do that, but not doing all the other functions. That would be too long to expect somebody to do. And if I gave you two problems, it'd be less than 2 hours. That's not fair. But we've gone through this. The problem with programming is you can make a simple mistake that doesn't mean you don't understand the concept. You just made a simple mistake, and it could take you 45 minutes to find the mistake. So I understand that. So that's why I want to give you more time. I will. Okay, so are there any questions on any of the topics in any of these functions that we had that you guys are not clear on? I'm happy to go through them and try to make up a test problem for, do it in class to make sure you understand the idea. There's stuff on the back also. I think some of these ideas are pretty straightforward. So like the print thing is like a simple idea at the end, number 7, printing a tab or printing a new line, or the end, so it goes on the same. You don't do a new line, it just stays on the same line. Hopefully everybody understands how to read from files. It really is a very simple operation to be able to read data from a file. And you will have to write minimally a function having main and perhaps reading values in and doing validation from a function. The exam will not be a test to see your understanding of functions. Hopefully as you've done more of this, you see the value of them and just normally incorporate writing functions to help you solve a problem. But certainly the question will not involve testing your the knowledge of functions and passing variables and global variables. You need to know about them, but there's not going to be an explicit question asking you about that. Again, I hope, how many people are more clear on or better on functions, see the utility of these things? Okay. So the operators, obviously the first A is pretty straightforward. Being able to extract, dealing things with lists, which we learned in the beginning of the semester, so you can extract a sublist, or you can extract a sublist by specifying indexes, or by here specifying, this is either lists or strings, because they behave the same way, or specifying everything up to but not including a value in a list or a string, or starting someplace. In any case, and reversing lists and strings, you should understand that. We've really had a number of assignments with that. You should be able to understand concatenation of strings and lists, and using the in operator, which hopefully now, again, everybody's incorporated into their toolkit. I'm hoping at this time we've done enough assignments that these things are, it's not like, oh, I have to go look up how to do this. It's sort of just built into having done enough of this stuff and looked at enough code that you just remember how to do it. Same thing with the control elements. So if, else if, or just else, and using ands or ors. For sure, you're going to have to use a for or a while loop. I don't care which one that you're going to do, but you should understand how to do that. The for is well equipped for dealing with files or going through individual elements of lists, or going through a range of values by setting a variable to a range of values. And then a bunch of functions. I'm hoping we've done it. I mean, I didn't reinforce a ton of these things, so we didn't use the split function that much, although I think that's a very, very useful function. The join, not as much, but we did an assignment with that. All the other ones, we didn't do a ton with ord and or character. Those are fairly simple functions that simply take a number and turn it into a character, or take a character and turn it into a number. And the strip functions are fairly straightforward. They just strip leading and trailing values. I think really it's more a question of remembering that these things exist and looking at a problem and thinking about applying them. And then just the sort of standard data types: integers, floats, strings, lists, both one-dimensional lists and two-dimensional lists. So I will send out a practice problem. So I'll email out a problem that was on a prior exam that I felt was the hardest problem on the prior exam, so you can sort of gauge the complexity of it. And I'll send out my solution, so you can. Obviously, the best thing is to do the problem and compare it to mine. As always, when I grade the exam, I don't expect your solution is going to be the same as mine. The grading is based upon whether the problem is going to work in all cases. And so we've had a number of situations in this class where I've come up with a solution and people have come up with shorter or better solutions, and that's fine. Well, I'll wait a few minutes in case you guys want to go through this list and make sure you understand the ideas here. Yo.
Will we really have to use the O board and CHR?
Would you have to? And under what situations?
Like, how would we apply it to, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Right. So, yeah, its utility is limited, I would agree. So the only case, you're only going to use it if you yeah. You're given a character, so it's only going to have application when you have an individual character, not a string, right?
Yeah.
So I made up that problem, right, where we had that code, right? So there were numbers, sort of as a cipher, and there was a number and you had to turn it into a word, right? So the number represented the ASCII value, and you had to turn that number into a character. I would not spend a ton of time. There's nothing to study on it. I mean, let me restate that. Do you understand what it does?
Yeah.
You're just trying to figure out, when have you ever used this function in real life?
Yeah, basically.
Well, I'd be lying to you if I said it. I used it a lot. It does come up where yeah, okay. So I would review it. I wouldn't spend a lot of time. You can look at the example we had. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So I do think, sir, it's going to stick out if I wrote a problem that required it. You somewhere in there you're going to say, oh, there's a character in here and it's a number, and he wants to turn it into what the ASCII value is, and so then the bell should go off and say, oh, I got to use that. I'm thinking that's of all of these. I don't really find that join is sort of really, I think they wrote join because they wrote split, and they wanted to write sort of the other end of it. So remember, you can take split, will take a string and divide it into a list, and so I think its applications are somewhat limited also. I think the other ones have much more utility. Something like, obviously, is numeric and is alphabetic are actually quite useful. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, well, I don't have to, unless you want to stay here, I'm happy to stay here also, but I'm available. So I'll try to send the problem out tonight. I'm assuming you have other things to do during the day. So, so the prep for the exam would be to do that problem and try to go back and do other ones that you might have had trouble with, and see if you got the solution. Of course, I've posted most of the solutions. If not, you can go back to the video. And I'm around for if you have questions. And for those people who did, again, for those people who did poorly on the second exam, I will, if you do better on the third exam, I'll give greater weight to I'll give greater weight to the third exam for your score than for the second exam to try to even things out. So, because all I care about is you understand the material at the end, and this exam should test if you do not understand how to do it. So, I guess that's it. Oh.
Would you be able to pull up the code from the homework that we just did?
Oh, sure. And if there are other ones that you want, I don't know if I've posted them all, but if there's other ones, I can post the other assignments. Anybody else? Okay, well, hopefully you've enjoyed this semester. I'll go into that conclusion, or at least my class. I don't mind deluding myself the first time, and so I'll see you a week from tomorrow, and good luck on your other exams.